Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by.
At Villere's Florist, we deliver the magic of flowers 7 days a week to the North Shore and South Shore in the New Orleans area. Whether it's for birthday parties, baby celebrations, Villere's provides colorful floral displays for all. With a store full of fresh-cut flowers, exotic tropical flowers, orchids, roses, and even fruit baskets, our goal is to make your vision a reality. Villere's Florist, proudly serving Louisiana since 1969.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we'll cover all the home teams. The LSU Tigers preparing for a national championship game against Clemson. We'll do a post-mortem on the New Orleans Saints and the Tulane Green Wave. And tonight to break it down for us, none other than Mike Detillier. I get more emails, more private messages on social media. When you're bringing Mike back, he's back with us tonight. Mike Detillier. Mike, welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate it.
Always good to have you. Mike, I look, it's always a busy time of year for you, but talk a bit about what you got going on, which is a lot.
Okay. I'll keep it real short. No, listen, National Championship Week, a guy I've known over 40 years, sort of grew up with.
Yes.
Being the head coach, you get pulled a lot of different ways for interviews. And so, man, listen, I'm thrilled for him. Thrilled for LSU, state of Louisiana, to be put in that limelight.
Right.
And we talked just a couple of days ago. And I told him just don't mess it up. win it Monday night. And he just howled laughing. But that sort of engulfed everything. We thought we'd be talking about Saints right now too in the second round, going to the Packers. It just didn't happen. But man, LSU talk is just unreal. And I did tell his dad, you could not pay for the advertising you get now. That doesn't affect the 2020 class,
right?
But 2021, 2022, and beyond,
yes,
it's just unbelievable. It's a different brand now of football.
No doubt. Mike, for a guy that grew up on the Bayou with Ed, first of all, how gratifying is it to be involved in all that? And then for your community, okay, to again, stick that chest out a little bit about what Ed has been able to accomplish. We know the state of Louisiana now, everybody's on the bandwagon, but we know down in the Bayou, everyone's on the bandwagon from day one.
No, nobody turned their back on
That's
him.
right.
And listen, they got a lot of them today that they've revised their script about Ed a little bit. Now they want to tell you, I was passing judgment later. Come on. That wasn't actually the case. But you know what, listen, I'm proud of him, what he's been able to do, and for the people on the Bayou, that opportunity that maybe the next Ed Orgeron's out there as a coach. And, I hear that too. People say, like what you do, we want the next Mike Detillier, the next Ed Orgeron. Listen, that would be superb to have that happen. But it's given a lot of pride to the Bayou area, a lot of hardworking people.
Yes.
I've grown up there. I still live there. Now, my grandpa, he wouldn't be crazy about this. I live right across the bayou from Latour Golf Course, and he worked at the sugar mill.
Yes.
that was there. Now, that sugar mill's not there anymore.
Yes.
They do have one in Rayson, but not in the Matthews area. And David Toms has his golf course there. So, everything sort of changes in there. But, those people are resilient, tough. And as I've told many people nationally, it's either one of two ways. Either they really like you or they really don't. There is no gray area into that deal. So, man, I'm just thrilled. You cannot go anywhere that somebody is not. Man, what about Coach O? Or what about Bebe? Or what about Junior? Because, I hear when we grew up, everybody called him Junior.
Okay.
Because his dad was original Bebe, so to speak. But everybody called him Junior. And to see the road was not easy for him, and some of it was self-inflicted. He'll be the first to say it. But to get to this level and do it. So I'm thrilled for him. And one more game left.
Yep.
And, the one thing with him is he has not ridden the wave of being really excitable. You start to hear it a little bit more in his voice today, understanding this isn't just a regular game.
No.
But his deal is, if I get too excited, my team is going to get too excited with it. We're just going to take this and do what we do best.
I love the fact that he has stayed on the same routine. And, and I think that especially for the biggest game in his career, the biggest game in every one of these kids' career, to stay on routine, the same way it's been done every week all through the season. Maybe the days have changed a bit, but the same routine.
Yeah, and he's learned. He's not the hard-headed Cajun from the Bayou anymore.
Right.
He does take advice. He seeks it today. That when he was at Ole Miss, man, I didn't get no phone call about, what do you think about this play? What do you think about? No, today is a little bit different. He does that with coaches. To have John Robinson on that staff, too.
Yeah.
Now, people don't talk about that, but, John's been through, he's walked that football aisle before in some huge games at SC. And that certainly helped. They got a tremendous coaching staff. Everything has hit. And it's almost like, okay, don't pinch me now, because the dream's still there of how well this team has come together. And it's just not about 4- and 5-star recruits.
Right.
It's about the Justin Jeffersons of the world, the Lloyd Cushenberrys of the world, Clyde Edwards-Alairs of the world. Guys, Joe Burrow, a transfer to come in, and he has changed LSU football more than anyone in our lifetime.
Yes.
He has been the catalyst to it.
Mike, and go back to your point about guys. This is not all 4- and 5-star guys like we're seeing with Clemson coming in to the Dome on Monday. But what it shows you is great coaching, right? These guys are teachers. And I asked the question a couple years ago, can you take 2- and 3-stars and can you, with good coaching, be able to compete against the 4- and 5-stars? Because at that time, LSU was having problems in the trenches with Alabama. We've seen now under Ed Orgeron, that is possible.
Yeah, and it's not all 3 2-star players.
Sure.
Now, he does have 4- and 5-star
There's no
players.
doubt. There's no doubt.
But he's always told me, Mike, I trust my own instincts. I trust them as a talent evaluator. I have a former NFL coach that lives across from me. He has no clue about talent evaluation. You know why? All his life, this is the guy you coach. I can turn him into whatever, because he wasn't in the evaluation part. He was a coach. And so it's difficult. But he has a really good eye for talent, always has. When he was at Miami, Jimmy Johnson and him worked real closely together in the recruiting part. Pete Carroll trusted him. He was the recruiting coordinator. And they went for a lot of guys. At times weren't the 4- and 5-star. People don't realize this. Clay Matthews, he was a walk-on at USC. He didn't grow until late in his high school career. He came to SC, he was sort of a legacy. Oh, you want to try out, be a walk-on? Okay, look what he's done. The other guy is Mike Patterson, who Ed was big, pleading, everything. Paul Hackett would not let him sign him. He was a 3-star recruit. 5'11", 280-pound defensive tackle. Come on, Ed. He can't play in this league. All he was a 3-time All-Pac-10 back then selection. First-round pick of the Philadelphia Eagles. Played 11 years in the NFL. Wow. Ed understands it. He knows talent. Like you said, come on, Mike, it's hit and miss. Sometimes I'm going to do really good, and sometimes I'm not. But the buck stops with me. It's not that recruiting coordinator. It's with me. I'm the final say on if we sign that particular player. He spends a lot of time watching film, and he'll ask about a player. What do you think? Watching this, watching that. What do you think? And he gets feedback from the coaches and does a great job and just fabulous. And when he told me, I came on your show the week after he told me this, we are going to be a national recruit team. And I said, what? You got to be kidding me. He was like, Mike, I'm telling you, we're going to up the eastern seaboard and out west. I said, listen, Ed, I understand out west. You got connections there. Bill Bush has connections there. USC and UCLA, they just trudging at this point. LSU's never recruited Virginia, Maryland, Washington, D.C. They've hit a little bit in Georgia from time to time. He said, we're going to hit them hard all across the board. And look what's happened. And he's worked that really, really well.
I would agree. You guys are very close. Talk about you kind of mentioned it just kind of in passing here, the coaching tree that he comes from. A lot of great coaches that he's been involved on their staffs, and as coaches do, they take a little bit from each of those coaches and kind of make their own style.
Yeah, when he was at Ole Miss, he thought he was Ralph Perry at South Lafourche. I mean, he was going to be the hardline coach. Right. And he threw to the side the other stuff he had learned in the past. Yeah, if it was from Ken Hatfield, if it was from Jimmy Johnson, Dennis Erickson, then Pete Carroll, Paul Pasqualelli, who was at Syracuse. But he learned a lot of different things and understood it. But, a lot of times you got to hit a hard spot to really realize you got to change. This might be a Cajun trait or people from South Louisiana, but we think we can do things quicker, better, faster than anyone else.
Yes.
So he thought he could coach every position. He couldn't. And he got on the nerves of not only players, but also coaches on that staff. And he learned how to treat people differently. And he'll be the first to admit it. Pete Carroll gave me the greatest advice in the world about you are no longer the defensive line coach. You're the head coach and you're the final voice. So make sure that echoes. You're the final voice, and you can't treat a quarterback like you treat a defensive tackle. So, and he first admitted, I didn't pay any attention to what Carroll told me. I did what I wanted to do, and it got me run off. He did a great job recruiting. Houston Nutt won 9 games, 10 games
with
his talent.
Right.
But again, sometimes you got to get a low point before you realize what you can do.
Yes.
He's totally changed guy now. He's turned that offense over to Ensminger and Brady. They run it on defense. He trusts Dave Aranda that Dave's going to do it. And I'm not saying he doesn't give suggestions from time to time. He came on our radio show 2 Mondays ago and said, hey, listen, who's the head coach on special teams? It's Greg McMahon. I don't have nothing to do with that. I'll watch, and they explain it, but Greg runs that. So he's been a much better player delegating authority and letting them and he said, who taught me the best about that? Sean Payton. He said, when I was with the Saints, Sean did a great job of saying, okay, you coaching the defensive line, you the head coach of the defensive lineman. If you coaching linebackers, that's what you control. And, and I trust you're going to do a great job doing it. And he said, I learned a lot from Sean and how he delegated authority to assistant coaches.
Well, one thing we know he can do, because he's done it throughout his career, is close on a recruit. Okay? And, of course, there's all kind of stories out there about the gumbo and everything else now. But you've known him for a long time. And, look,
he can put down some chow now. He's picked up about 25 pounds of weight.
Tell you what, I saw him on the field the other day. You surely couldn't tell. He's still that big barrel-chested guy. But, again, I know all of Louisiana is very, very proud of him and what he has done. Even those of us that doubted whether he could do it or not, the fact that he's done it, everybody is happy about that at this point. And, again, a lot of us talked about the fact that you have to be a CEO of LSU going forward. And, look, he's done that and more going forward. But the recruiting is the lifeblood of any college.
Just like the draft is for the NFL.
And we know we knew going in that was one thing he would nail down.
Yeah, he does it really well. And the other thing is, he's no longer Bebe Ogeron. He's Ed Ogeron. Now, we could still call him Bebe or Junior, but he's no longer that guy anymore, the defensive line coach. He's now in charge.
Yes.
He's Ed Ogeron now. And he didn't like dealing with the media. You could tell at Ole Miss, man, because I'd have guys call me, how do you get close to him? He doesn't want anything. And he was like, man, I don't trust none of them. I don't like it. But now, and he's asked me, how you deal with all that? I said, just tell him them stories that you would tell us. And so now he gets into these little stories and all little anecdotes. And man, his life is like Forrest Gump. I mean, he's connected all kind of different ways. And Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, man, you talk about The Rock got some stories on Bebe.
Yes.
Oh my God. And he got stories on Dwayne too.
Who he coached at Miami, right?
Who he coached. Dwayne was a defensive line at Miami. He recruited him when he said, I was told you got to go recruit a kid from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Dwayne Johnson. He said, man, Mike, it's not like it is today. You just whip that film out and say, I went up there, big, good-looking kid. You know, find out his grandpa's a wrestler, his dad's a wrestler, you know, all the family are big people. So Mike, we brought him here. He was really good, and he hurt his back. So he said, you know, he was basically part of the rotation, started as a senior. But one of the funny stories is with Dwayne, they played against San Diego State. And late in the game, and it was about a 10-point game at that point, they intercept the pass, they run it in for a score, and the defensive back from Miami goes in the end zone, and he puts the ball up in the air like this. And when he pulls it down, the Aztec mascot comes behind him and hits him like this and walks away. So, you know, the defensive back, you know, what's going on? You know, who hit me on that? Well, you know, Ed said, man, I'm trying to hold everyone back. Hold him back, hold him back, hold him back. He said, not a corner of my eye. He said, I saw Dwayne take off. And he said, listen, it took a lot to rile him up. He said, listen, Dwayne was a mild-mannered guy. And he said, Mike, today to hear him, I can't believe he's talking. They called him Duty back then. He said nothing.
Right.
He said they would try to antagonize him, but he said ain't nobody wanted to mess with him physically. Because you knew he'd catch you, you wasn't getting away. Dude, you know, when your dad and your grandpa's a wrestler, you know how to tie people up. So he said, man, I'm running down the field. And he said Dwayne had, by this time, picked the Aztec mascot up over his head like this. And he said, you know, I told him, Dwayne, drop him. Coach, he said, no, drop him. So he said, all Dwayne did was take 2 steps forward and just dumped him. And he said, you know, like when a worm hits, he said, you know, it kind of breaks.
Yes.
He said, you know, he was in that mascot outfit, and he said, like he broke 3 different ways. But, you know, and even Dwayne talks about, you know, his motivation. And,
yes.
Man, listen, I don't want to hear about you tired. You just got to go beat that next guy. That's always been his deal. But, stories about Warren Sapp and Ray Lewis and all those guys that he helped recruit, unbelievable.
Amazing. Let's talk a little bit about this game on Monday night. Clemson has had 4 consecutive college football playoff appearances. They've won 2 national championships. There are players on that team that have never lost a game in their career at Clemson. You look at LSU right now, they're battle-tested. They beat 6 top 10 teams this season, number 9 Texas, number 7 Florida, number 9 Auburn, number 3 Alabama, number 4 Georgia, and a couple weeks ago, number 4 Oklahoma. They've also bested top 25 defenses at LSU. Talk a bit about with Clemson coming in and being there, having done that already. Well, you know, being involved in the college football playoffs, being on the highest stage, as opposed to LSU, who's had a really great season, but this group has never been in this type of game on Monday night. Is there an edge there for Clemson?
I would think, Eric, there's probably a little bit of an edge.
Right.
You haven't done that before.
Yes.
I always believe that it helps, doesn't hurt. But look, the competition LSU has played.
Battle tested, right?
As battle tested as you could be. You know, if they end up beating Clemson, you would talk about they would have defeated 7.
That's got to be that's got to be a first.
And if this game has distance between it, let's say LSU wins by more than 2 touchdowns, I think you can have an argument that this is one of the best college football teams of all time. Because Ed and I talked about Joe Burrow, and you know, we've seen running backs. You know, kind of growing up, we saw Simpson do it at USC. OJ did it in that senior year for him, and we saw Herschel Walker and Bo Jackson, Barry Sanders at Oklahoma State. You think about what Joe has done at quarterback.
It's amazing.
You know, if he has a huge game against Clemson, I'm just telling you. And someone else asked him the question after we had spoke about it. And because we had talked about it, you know, I don't remember a quarterback playing at this level against that many top teams, that many top defenses, and excelling at the highest level. Clemson's a big play football team. I told this story on the radio this afternoon. You know, we get a chance to talk to the campers at the Manning camp. Trevor Lawrence was there, and Eli Manning kind of let the cat out the bag. He said, man, look at Peyton. He's always out there talking to these quarterbacks. And he said, you know, this was a few years back when Peyton was right at the end of his career. Eli was, you know what he's trying to do? He's trying to get intel. He's trying to find out what that guy, because he might have to play against him, or he might be in a position where he's, you know, a general manager or something like that, and he can use that intel against him. And so that sort of formulated some of the things that I ask quarterbacks. And sometimes quarterbacks, they give you a pat answer. You know, it's almost like canned laughter. You know, it's just they've practiced it. So this year, I asked Trevor Lawrence, what's the best feature of your game? He said the deep ball. And I asked him why. He said, one, he said, I throw it real well. We practice it a lot of timing. And he said, the other thing, too, I've learned from high school into college, okay, they got you in a 3rd and 7. You're on the road. The crowd is hollering, everything else. The defense thinks they're going to get you off the field. And I hit a 55-yard pass or a 60-yard pass, and we score. He said it's the look in their eyes about, okay, and I got something else for you, too, the next time we go on the field.
Right.
And he loves that deep ball. You know, and having done this for over 33 years, one of the things, you know, I can't remember a guy who throws a better deep ball than Trevor, especially as a sophomore, the way he can throw the deep ball.
Yes.
I've seen other guys in the short intermediate throw it better. The deep ball, that's what he likes. And he told me, he gave me the baton. That's what I want to do. If you look at how they play, quick strike, bang, hit that receiver downfield.
Yes.
And they also do it in the running game with Travis Etienne. You know, Travis, yeah, he'll get that 3 yards, 5 yards, 4 yards, 6 yards, 9 yards, then back to 3. The next thing you know, he's 60-something yards downfield. And he's got 3 gears, fast, real fast, and super fast. And you just see in the back of his heels. So it's going to be imperative. LSU tackles well.
Yes.
And 2 is not to let Trevor sit in that pocket and throw, you know, without interrupting anything in his launch pad. That's what he wants, to sit in that pocket and just nail you downfield. And I suspect LSU's secondary, they can get ready. He's going to go deep on them. Not once, not twice, not 3 times. He's going to continuously go after you because he thinks that's the best brand of his, to throw the ball deep downfield.
How does the LSU defense counteract that?
We better get a pass rush. And now having Mike Divinity back certainly helps.
Yes.
Caleb Von Chasson, certainly the last 4 weeks, I mean, he has been big-time money. I mean, he has played at a super high level. And Eric, you look back at it, Rashard Lawrence, in every big game this year, the big man has shown up. And you think about, you know, last year in the Fiesta Bowl, he played an unbelievable game there. They have to win in the trenches. You know, it's old school because you always want to watch the football. You always want to watch the quarterback, the receivers. But you got to win up front. LSU's offensive line going up against Clemson's defensive line. Now, listen, there's no way that defensive line can compare to last year. 3 of those guys got picked in the top 20 picks last year in the draft. They're good, but they ain't as good as they were a year ago. And I do think it will be very difficult for Clemson's defense to slow down LSU. The big question mark is, can Clemson match point for point for point against LSU?
Brent Venables, the defensive coordinator at Clemson, now has, almost 2 weeks to be able to prepare for this Joe Brady, Ensminger, Joe Burrow offense. What do you anticipate he's going to try to do?
He's going to blitz him. I have no doubt. There's no way that those DBs can hang out there one-on-one.
I agree with you.
Eric, they're going to have to blitz him some kind of way to try to interrupt what he can do in throwing the football downfield. If all you're going to do is play coverage, Joe's going to find the open guy, and you can't cover forever. And one of the things he's done extremely well, and Joe Brady brought this up during the summer to me, is that the utilization of the backs coming out of the backfield and tight end, which had not been done at LSU.
Right.
And think Thaddeus Moss breaks the single-season reception record for tight ends. Look what Clyde does coming out of the backfield. And so it doesn't only stretch you this way, it stretches you this way. But the other part about it, and I got the Doubting Thomas comment on this from him. We did a couple of Tiger tours, and Ed said, Mike, you know what? I want to be 50-50 or 51-49, you know, 50, whatever, 53-47, run and pass. And he said, more pass than run. I said, oh, come on. He's like, come on. And so he give me that, what, so you doubt me or what? I said, no, I'm not asking you to show me the wound as the Doubting Thomas, but I'm saying that's not what we've seen. He said, I'm just telling you. He said, we are going to be as close to 50-50 as we can get. You look at it this year. They've run 999 offensive plays at LSU. which is an unbelievable amount
That is
of plays.
amazing.
518 pass, 481 run.
Wow.
So it's 52-48.
Right.
Almost, he called that in June, that's what we're going to do. But the craziest one, and that was a good call, but it wasn't as good as Joe Burrow in July at the Manning camp, when he told me, we are going to score 40 to 50 points every game. And I'm like, okay. And one thing with him, when he says something, you pay attention. He's not one to, sort of stretch the rubber band.
Right.
And he's like an assassin. He don't say too much of nothing. He does his job and he walks away. He'd have been good in the Irishman movie. If you watch Netflix,
I did see it.
He'd have been good. He'd have been good in that part.
Yes.
But when he said that, that was sort of eye popping. That
for all of us, I thought the Thibodeau heat got to him. But he's backed it up.
He's backed it up.
He's backed it up.
And it's even been better than that.
Right.
So it's just amazing how well this offense has clicked. A lot of it has to do with the balance, but everything revolves around Joe and his quick thinking. And I think in Venerables, and he's got to take a chance, Eric. He's got to take a chance with some blitzes and hopes he can get to him and maybe throw an interception or whatever. But I do know one thing, a smart quarterback, he wants you to blitz because now I know where to go with the football then. And so, I can't see Clemson's DBs and linebackers being able to match up real well and slow LSU down. And then it's going to be a point-for-point game. Can Clemson offensively do it? But they're going to attack LSU's secondary, and they're going to attack them deep.
Yes. Speaking of matchups, is there a matchup on the field where Clemson is clearly better than LSU?
I can't say clearly better.
Right. Neither can
about it. Clearly better, no. It was funny, last year at the same time, we had Pete Jenkins, a longtime defensive line coach, who still actually works with Alabama in the spring and the summer. So he comes on a radio show the night of the national championship game. And so I said, okay, Pete, I know you don't like to do it. Give me a pick. He says, Clemson, and it's by more than 2 touchdowns. I said, why? He said, just look at those defensive linemen they got. And he said, Alabama will not be able to block them. And he said, you know what? I think the kid, he got no fear. You know why? He's never been here before. He's got no pressure on him. Who's got pressure? Tua. He's been there, done that. They expect you to do it. So he said, you know what? I think Clemson wins this by the physicality they have along their defensive line. And he said, I think the kid, sometimes ignorance is bliss.
Yes.
In these type situations. He said, I think he'll handle it extremely well. And he said, you know what, more than 2 touchdowns. Look how I was sitting, because if I'd have been standing, he'd have floored me. And look what happened. It was by more than 2 touchdowns.
Yes, it was.
So Pete called that, and last Monday he called it. He thought LSU by 10.
I look at this LSU offense, and I've talked about it on both this show and the radio show. Reminds me so much of the Saints' shock and awe offense, right? I mean, I'm talking about Breeze leading to going to the Super Bowl, and then maybe the 11 or 13 team without, at any time that offense would put you on your heels, and you were in catch-up mode the entire time.
Yeah. When I talked to Joe Brady in the summer, and Steve sort of chimed in also, I thought this offense was going to be much more like a Chip Kelly offense.
Okay.
A lot of run to dive, little short passes. None of that.
No.
Joe said, you know what I'm going to do? Catch them with pace, speed.
Yeah.
He said, you can't do it in the NFL. They slow you down. He said, if you try to do it in the NFL, the referees, whoa, slow down. But he said, in college football, you can do it at a much faster pace. And he said, Mike, with our receivers, the big playability, 4 plays, bang, we score. 5 plays, bang, we score. Okay, you down 14-0. Okay, show me what you got now. So it's the shock of what you bring up, the shock of, okay, we had a game plan. We down 20-0. Look at Oklahoma. And you could see him on the sidelines, Lincoln Riley. He was like, okay, we had a plan, but it ain't working. Now where we go with this? And it's almost, that Mike Tyson line.
Right.
Everybody's got a plan till you get hit. And it's amazing how the speed and the pace of that offense. And then every once in a while, they sort of slow it a little bit, and you get an 8-9 play drive. But most of them, 4, 5, 6, boom, in the end zone on the sidelines.
They're as healthy as they've been all season. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is back.
The
Damian
best.
Lewis will play. We know Terrence Marshall will play. Of course, you mentioned Mike Divinity coming back to this team. There's a dome field advantage as well. They're talking about 65%, maybe 70% of the crowd will be an LSU crowd.
Man, if I got Clemson tickets and I'm thinking about that, I can make me a good fortune. If I got 10 of them.
Right.
Man, LSU fans are spending a lot of money on those tickets. Yeah, it'll be a big home field advantage. But, one of the things Ed said, you know what? If they get ahead of us, what are you cheering for?
Well, look what Rudolph said last week with the Saints. Best sound was silence, right?
Yeah, and so his deal is, hey, listen, we are not going to change what we've done. We are going to do what we've done all year long. That's not going to change. The biggest change over the last month of the season for LSU and into Georgia, and then again against Oklahoma, it's been the play of the defense. The defense has come to play.
Why is that?
I got no idea. I asked Ed about it. He said, and he had told me this was before the Arkansas game. He said, I'm just telling you, we're going to come around. I said, Ed, the season's almost over. He was like, no. He said, believe me. He said, he said, that's a little bitty things we messed up on, but he said, we coming around. He said, I'm telling you. He said, we really playing well, and he said, we're going to finish this strong on defense. And you look at it, that's been the big difference from the start of the season until now of how well their defense has played. You don't see them out of position a lot. They're making plays.
Right.
And his big thing is turnovers. We got to get turnovers. And there's the one disappointment for him is he thought this team would create more turnovers on defense. Like he said, listen, I'm not complaining,
right?
But that would have been the one area I think if they'd have told me, hey, guess what? You 13-0. He'd have said, man, let me see how much difference turnover ratio it is. I think they're a +8. I think Clemson's like a +16. So that's a pretty good difference there. They have not been able to get the big turnover. Like you said, we had opportunities.
Yes.
We just didn't get them.
Big difference, though, in the schedule that LSU played and the schedule that Clemson played as well.
Well, yeah, because, man, you think about it. But, listen, I take nothing away from Dabo.
No, I don't either.
You talk about two of the most unconventional coaches
Unbelievable.
in college football is Dabo Swinney and Ed Orgeron.
Right. And their paths to get where they are as well.
Because fortunately for Dabo, he had an AD that stood up for him when they had that 500 year and everybody wanted him out of there.
Yes.
And that AD stood up and said, no, he's going to be here, you like it or not. And if he doesn't make it, then you can fire the both of us. He stood up for it. And I'll give Joe Oliva credit on that he believed in Ed.
Yes.
That might have been the only good decision he made, but but he did stand up for him at that particular point when he was taking a lot of heat to do something else.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Mike Detillier is our guest tonight. We'll take a quick break to hear from our underwriters. We come back. We'll continue the conversation briefly about LSU. A few more questions. Then we'll get into the New Orleans Saints, what happened there. And then we'll touch on Tulane again, finishing out their season with a winning record and back-to-back bowl wins. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports. Mike Detillier is our guest. I'm Eric Asher. Stick around.
Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration has been family-owned and operated since 1989. Burkhart has energy-efficient solutions and offers brands such as Mitsubishi ductless AC units and Amana, the only manufacturer with a lifetime unit replacement warranty. Burkhart's offers maintenance bundle packages that include servicing your AC, generator, and tankless water heater. For more information on the services Burkhart's provides, visit acpromise.com. Burkhart's Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration, providing comfort for life.
Located at 3701 Iberville Street in Mid-City is Katie's Restaurant and Bar. Open 7 days a week, Katie's offers daily specials for lunch, dinner, and Sunday brunch. Serving New Orleans cuisine such as fried shrimp platters, grilled redfish, and a fully stocked bar. And don't forget about our expanded event seating and local entertainment. Featured on the Best of Food Network's diners, drive-ins, and dives, Katie's Restaurant and Bar.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. Mike Detillier is our guest tonight. Mike, is this the matchup of the best two teams in college football?
Ain't no question. That's why they here. Two most talented teams. You see the talent. Pete Jenkins told me this back in the summer. He said, write down all those defensive starters for LSU. So you know what? Every one of them's playing in the NFL. So Monday night he said, Mike, write down them offensive starters for Clemson. All them guys playing in the NFL too. So you may be talking about 40-something guys when it's all said and done in the next 3 years from these two teams that'll hit the NFL. That goes to show not only your ability to recruit, but develop players. Because that's a Nick Saban line. I did a couple of events with Nick when he was at LSU, and he always had that R&D, recruit and develop players. That he thought that, I got coaches that can recruit, can't develop. I got guys that are really good developers, can't recruit worth a lick. So, both these guys have done a fantastic job recruiting develop players. And I would put that number, because I got asked today, over and under at 42 in the next 3 years hitting the NFL. My thing is take the over.
Yeah. Ensminger, Aranda, Brady, will they be back?
Well, Steve's building a new house, so he got to pay for it.
Okay, you got to pay that.
So him and Amy's got to pay for it. I'd heard all that stuff about him retiring. He never spoke to me about it. I just think was speculation at that point. I think Joe stays one more year. I think Joe Brady stays one more year at LSU, and then he will be one of the hottest head coaching prospects in the country in college football at that point. And here's my thing about it: if he stays, he's got other opportunities to go nowhere else. You know what that tells you? He thinks Miles Brennan's a player. Because if he didn't, tag me, I'm out.
Leave when you're hot.
Tag me, I'm out of here. And so, and that's some things Miles can do that Joe can't.
Right.
Arm talent, now again, that's not everything.
Right.
But arm talent-wise, Miles has got the advantage over Joe. Now, what we don't know about Miles is his ability under stress to find the open receiver downfield, him to get away from a pass rush, his toughness to take a hit. That Joe was unbelievable. And Joe's personality is different from most quarterbacks. Yes. I mean, because, I've seen Ed jump all over. Whatever. Just whatever. You got to have a certain personality to be that quarterback. He's a little different from the most. The most emotion I saw from him was at the Heisman Trophy Award. Right. I never saw him show any emotion anywhere. I'm just doing my job. I'm going to lead by example. And if I got to jump you, you're going to know why, and you're going to pay attention. So Miles got some big shoes to fill. But the fact that Joe would stay tells me he thinks he's the guy.
Yeah. Final question about LSU. Who do you like on Monday and why?
I'm going to go LSU 44-31. I think LSU is going to score points. I don't think Clemson can match point for point for point against LSU. And this team has been on a mission, focused.
Yes.
It's not been about winning the SEC West, not been about winning the championship game. It's been about the national championship. And one guy told me that in June. One. And I told you back in July, we doing this Tiger Tour, and he told me, he said, you know what? Not all injuries are the same. You can lose a couple guys that really affects your season. And he said, listen, everybody got injuries, but depends on who's injured. He said, Mike, I'm telling you, if we can stay pretty healthy, January, we're going to be hoisting that trophy in New Orleans, the national championship.
Well, it's coming.
And you know what? The one thing with Ed, he doesn't tell you, doesn't try to fool you with things. When he told me that, I think he really believed it back then, and that dream is right there for him.
Right there for him. Unfortunately, the Saints' dream of a Super Bowl back in Miami is over. Of course, they were 13-3 going into it. They ended the season 13-4. They lose to Minnesota 26-20. They were the third seed in the tournament. Mike, what happened on Sunday in the Dome?
You got beat by, at that weekend, the better team. Come on, anybody watching that game? The Saints weren't a better team that Sunday. The Vikings were the better team, and they beat them up front. They beat them in the trenches. And, we spoke about it ahead of time. Saints offensive line going up against the Vikings defensive line. Man, that was going to be where it was going to be won. And I was as shocked as anybody of, the Vikings, they were pouring in there and just blew up the Saints interior.
That was really shocking.
And that surprised me. losing has a lot of fathers. You know, it just wasn't one thing.
No, it wasn't.
You look at, you had a missed field goal. Drew turns the football over on an interception, and he's trying to make a play, and he fumbles the football. You didn't get a good play along the offensive line. You ran the ball 17 times, you threw it 34. That's not going to win you.
Especially when they're rushing the passer like they were. That was the biggest, to me, that was the biggest reason why the Saints did not win on Sunday. The inability or the stubbornness not to run Murray.
And you look at what the Vikings did. They gashed them in the first half.
Yes,
physically gashed them. Now, I give Dennis Allen and his crew credit. They adjusted in the second half, did a nice job of slowing down. Cook, he didn't get to 100 yards when he had in the high 80s.
He was 89 going in out of half. He only got 10 more yards.
So that part really, but did you have a real good feel?
Right.
Even though they got the fumble early, but had to settle for a field goal.
Right.
It was like, man, this doesn't feel good. But it didn't surprise me because over the last 5 years, the Vikings have either finished 1 or 2 in the NFL in red zone defense. You know, they might stretch you, but they're going to force you to kick the field goal. And you know what, Eric, I didn't have a good feel the entire game.
You didn't.
After that field goal, my thought was, we're going to be in for a long game here. And you thought at the end, maybe, just maybe you could pull out an ugly win. Wasn't to be, and you got to give Cousins credit. Man, he hits Thielen on that pass, throw that ball right in the bucket.
Yes, he did.
Hit right in the bucket. They noticed Lattimore goes out.
Right.
Bang. They went after it.
Right
So that's what you have to do. You got to give Mike Zimmer a lot of credit. In that game, he outcoached Sean Payton.
There's no doubt about it.
I look at this Saints team. We grew up in the same era.
Yes.
Don't they remind you of the 1970s version of the Raiders? Come out with one Super Bowl win in that time frame. Look how many teams they had that were talented.
That's right.
And they lose to the Kansas City Chiefs, the old Baltimore Colts, the Steelers, the Dolphins, the Broncos in the playoffs.
Yep.
And end up with one Super Bowl win.
Right.
And losing some odd ways. The Raiders did it in the 70s. The Saints did it, last 2 years.
Right.
But this time, you got beat.
Yes.
There's no pointing the finger at officials, anything else.
I would agree.
We can do that all year long. And the officiating has not been good, and that has to change. And ownership in the National Football League has to put their fingers and hands down and say, we're not going to take this anymore.
Yep.
But you got beat. You got beat up front.
Yes.
And that's the worst way to lose.
No doubt.
Had it been an errant pass or fumble, something like that has a winning score, no, you got beat. And you got to give the Vikings credit on your turf.
Right.
They took it to you.
Well, nobody believed it would happen again, and I don't think the team believed it would happen. I thought they went in a little bit overconfident, much like they did after the bye week with Atlanta. And everybody was telling them all week long, prepare for Green Bay. Look, I was a victim of it. Saturday, I'm looking up what's the weather going to be in Green Bay the next Sunday. Okay, so I was in it. To your point, 11, 13, 18, 19. These are all Super Bowl caliber teams.
And got beat.
And they got beat. And they got beat.
And it's easy to blame Drew Brees. It's easy for fans, blame Drew Brees for everything. And you know what? Coaches and quarterbacks get way too much credit for winning, way too much blame for losing.
Yes.
It's a lot more than that. And my thing, what I don't like to hear is people, just blow it up and start from scratch. What? Are you kidding me? Man, when you go get to be my age and have seen some of the bad teams we saw, as we were growing up, late 60s and 70s, even into the 80s, those were some bad teams. They got a generation of people who don't know anything about that part about it. Listen, I'm as disgusted as anybody with a 13-3 team and you get beaten round one. But I don't want to blow something up that has been that successful. Do you have to moderate a little bit? And do you get to the point now where what major decisions are you going to have to make? Because all those rookies that you hit on won't get paid the scratch.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt. And that, again, a lot of credit goes to Jeff Ireland and that crew.
And Peyton and Loomis all coming into that. And what happens with Drew financially? Because
$21 million in dead money sitting out there already.
One way or another.
Right.
One way or another. So, we did a TV show a couple of weeks back. Bobby was like, what do you think financially? What is it going to cost to bring Drew back? And I have no clue, none. But I would think anywhere from 28 to 32 million. It's going to be in that range of what he's going to want. Now, none of us know exactly what he's going to ask for, but I would think, somewhere in that little swerve is where you're going to end up having to pay him. And it's no doubt the Saints want him back, and I think Drew wants to come back.
Yes. The hope is there's a hometown discount there.
Well, you ain't going to get much.
Right.
Come on. If I'm Drew, at this point, I think in a very active offseason for veteran quarterbacks that we have not seen in a while now, who knows what will happen with Brady? What's going to happen with Andy Dalton? What's going to happen with Matt Stafford in Detroit?
Right.
So you got a lot of things that are variable here. Also Teddy Bridgewater on what happens on that end. Phillip Rivers looks as though he's played his last game for the Chargers. Eric, I don't remember another year of an offseason with that many guys and a lot of them up in age.
Yes.
How it's going to be done financially for these teams. But I would think a new contract for Drew is going to be, discount would be 28, but I think it's going to be more on the upper end toward the 32.
Let's talk a little about what comes next, and of course that's free agency, and that's signing your own. First question is, do you think they tender Taysom Hill with a first-round tender?
I would think probably so, but how do you pay him?
It's tough.
Because he has no defined position.
Look, even Peyton said it the other night about the
you can't put the franchise
in fantasy. You can't even utilize
him.
Right.
And so now, how do you pay him? And is Taysom going to say, okay, you know what? I'll do a 1-year deal, and then we look at my options a little bit later.
Right, because he'll be 30 next season.
He'll be 30 years old.
Right.
And so that's. You want him back because he's a heck of a football player.
Doubt.
His development at wide receiver during the year kind of got lost in everything, but you can see where that's where he is going to make an impact when he's back next year.
Some must-haves in terms of their free agents.
To me, Von Bell.
I agree.
I think would be number one on my list to bring back.
How about Onyemata?
At the right price with David, but he plays a position where they're going to have a lot of money dangling out there for him. He's not a great pass rusher. His ability to stop the run is there. I think the toughest choices are going to be with guys with a contract this year. Sheldon Rankins and Alvin Kamara. What do you do there?
Right. Especially after Kamara coming off a bad year.
And Rankins coming off of 2 years with injuries.
Right.
But he's an elite interior pass rusher. You don't have a lot of those guys that can rush from the inside like what he can.
And we're hearing Kamara just signed with Clutch Sports, which again,
he ain't giving nobody no hometown discount for sure. And if I was him, I wouldn't either.
Right. How about Andres Pete?
I think he's elsewhere. I think his ability to play left tackle, which I think he could, may get him a huge contract somewhere.
They pick up Janoris Jenkins, $11 million.
I think they try to extend that, but I think they want him back.
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
My thing about it is the old Ricky Jackson line. What he was here, 9 days, something. Man, practices for the unskilled.
Yes.
Man, Janoris, he knows how to play. He's been doing this. I think, man, I'd like to have that combination of Lattimore and Jenkins. I still think they go out and try to get a veteran corner and then draft one also. Every year, and you've heard me say this, I want a cornerback and a defensive lineman in every draft. I want those two spots in every draft to pick. So, people say, they just got $5 million. Man, we've been through this before. They have contracts set up that you can create money. That every team does it, and the Saints do it also. So you're going to have money to go out and get players.
Don't even pay attention to the cap number right now.
Because that number is phony.
Right, no doubt. Let's head to the phone lines, grab a couple calls. Toby is in Gretna. Toby, welcome. You're on Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Toby.
Hey, Eric. Do you think Alvin Kamara is making business decisions? And I'll hang up. Thank you.
He was injured this year.
Even though that's not admitted. Okay. Come on, everybody knows he was hurt.
I mean, and I know Peyton wouldn't admit it at the end of the year, but I think that's the reason why.
I wouldn't say anything either. If anybody's going to say it, let Alvin say it. I'm not going to say it. But, I know how much Sean likes him. There is no doubt.
There's some people out there saying trade him. I think that would be crazy to trade him.
Well, if you trade him, the other team would have to agree to a contract extension with him because why would I trade for a guy I'm going to keep 1 year?
Right.
Come on. That's great in a fantasy world, and I'm not saying it can't be done.
Right.
That you have a team that says, you know what, we can pony up the money for a running back. The one thing with running backs, and a few of them have gotten paid in recent years, Todd Gurley, Ezekiel Elliott, but how many more? Because, man, look at them coming out of the college ranks that you can say, man, that cheap labor, so to speak,
no
that
doubt.
rookie contract.
That's for sure. Bill is in Metairie. Bill, welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. Hey, Bill.
Hey, how you doing, fellas? I agree with everything you said so far, especially about the Saints being beat at the line of scrimmage. And you already answered my question about Alvin, him being hurt. I think the Saints missed Max Unger this year. I think they missed a real leader, a real strong man at center. How do you think they're going to overcome that? Can this rookie be as good as they hope him to be?
Right. Bill, thank you for the phone
Thank you,
call.
Bill. That's a good question. You miss Max's
Leadership?
his communication skills.
right.
Man, when you're the center,
Yes.
you're
the
getting everybody
quarterback
straight
of the
in
line,
line. You're quarterbacking. It helps to have a veteran quarterback in Drew. That helps out tremendously.
But physically, McCoy played well.
Man, I think for a rookie
Right.
center,
Yes.
Eric McCoy played pretty doggone good. And he'll get better at the communication part of it. But listen, Eric McCoy, to me, he's an all-pro, Pro Bowl type guy for many years. But Max was a special player. He's the best center, in my opinion, that's ever put on the black and gold. And so it's hard for you to replace him with a rookie and say, well, he's going to do the same as what Unger did.
And then you had injuries to guards all season long.
And that didn't help.
That's right.
That didn't help.
No doubt about it. Swift gears to Tulane. 7-6 on the season. They win the Armed Forces Bowl. They're the champion there, 30-13 over USM. Back-to-back winning seasons for the Greenies now. Back-to-back bowl wins for the first time in program history. Willie Fritz is saying that this is the best recruiting class that he's had in program history. We're hearing that they've got a pretty good chance of getting Jet Duffy, the grad transfer dual threat quarterback out of Texas Tech, which would be really huge for them.
That's the key.
Okay, but what are your thoughts on what he has done there and the year they had this year?
You know what? Overall, wasn't it disappointing the way it ended? Even though you got to the bowl game and you won the bowl game,
1-5 in the last 6
how
games.
it ended the last 6 games, because you thought that this was pieced together, that maybe they could have made a run, a little harder run at it, but Willie didn't let go the rope, and the coaching staff didn't, so they held it together. But there were too many penalties, turnovers.
Weren't disciplined at all.
And that part, to me, surprised me, coming off of last year in which you saw a big key is also keeping Hall as your offensive coordinator. Defensively, you're going to have some miss because of the fact you lost a couple, 3 guys in the secondary that are playing in the NFL today.
Right.
But offensively, it was too much hit and miss and too many turnovers. I think Willie's happy about winning the bowl game, back-to-back bowl games. And Tulane's future is bright, but they need the quarterback now because, okay, Justin's not there. Can Jeff be the guy to crank up the motor on it? Because, again, if you don't have that quarterback in that conference, you stuck in neutral.
No doubt about it. I want to get off of sports for a moment. Last few minutes we have in our show. You were very, very close to Carly McCord, who, again, tragically died in a plane crash. She was laid to rest last Saturday. Just a few thoughts for the audience, if you would.
Man, she was something, really was. I always told her she was a ray of sunshine every time she walked in a room. And we gravitated to one. I can't tell you what. You know, you got certain friends that you on one side of the room, they on the other, and you automatically, the eyes meet. And we played so many practical jokes on one another, and I mean, it was on and on. I've gotten to know her really well. Very honored that she asked me to speak at her wedding.
Right.
And last Saturday spoke at her funeral. She's a tremendous talent. Never complained. I told you the story. 8 jobs at the end.
Mind blowing.
And a big part of why we got along well is because we both had a lot of that in common. You know, we had numerous jobs. I've had numerous jobs. And her deal is, I just want to get paid like you. You know, she said, you got good jobs. You get paid a lot of money. And outside the sports world, too. And, you know, just tragic. 30 years old. She'd have been somebody that I think really would have been a national reporter.
She'd have been on the network.
No question about it. But that laugh. Yeah. I mean, she cut up. Quick story with her. They have a mural at Nicholls State of them getting the Southland Conference 2018 championship. Right. I saw they painted it, and I said, oh, that's Carly on there. They actually took my picture to do it, the picture that I took that night. And so I call her and tell her, I said, guess what? I said, you're on the mural here at Nicholls. I said, well, I got to clean it up a little bit. She was like, there's no way. I was like, come on, Carly, why would I tell you that if it's not true? She said, you're always messing with me. She said, well, take a picture and send it. I said, I refuse. I said, you got to come here and see it yourself. She said, well, I got an early Nicholls game. I'm coming to see it. So we went to see it, and she was like, oh, my God, I can't believe I'm on the mural. But it was before the game. They had all these ice chests. And if you look on my Facebook page, I have the picture of it. They got all the ice chests in front of the deal. She was like, well, let's start moving. I said, wait. I'm not here for hard labor, honey. All them ice chests are full to the brim. I'm not here to move it. Just sit on it, and I'll take your picture. She said, I got a plan. When Seth Thibodeau has his baseball banquet, I'm going to get all dressed up. You can get the keys. I can open it up, and I can come get my picture taken here. I'll be all dressed up. I said, listen, Carly, I'm not the janitor yet. I don't have the keys there. But I can get Coach Rebo to maybe open it up for you. But great time. I won't remember how she died, how she lived.
There you go. And finally, about a minute left. 15 years, and it's hard to believe my buddy Diliberto has been gone.
Unreal. You know,
and the impact he made on everybody's lives around.
Everybody, I say this before, in the last probably 15 years that he lived, there was not a day go by that he didn't call me. And I'm talking about, we on vacation, and you know, I'm like, hey buddy, I'm on vacation. He was like, well, you can go back to vacation. Let me ask you, what about Utah and Air Force? You know, and you know, just a great guy, was super with me. He had his own style. He was unique. He was the most unique personality in broadcasting history here in New Orleans. And he was opinionated, and he was the first guy to stand up and say, this franchise ain't going right. And that got him banned from the plane. That would be another story, but my goodness, it just seems like a blink of an eye. And but to know him and personally, and went so many different places, his wife, my wife, and him and I, oh my God, stories. Well, with Carly, if I wrote a book, it would be from A to D in Encyclopedia Britannica. With Diliberto, it would be from A to T. I mean, we got him.
There you go. Mike, thanks for being with us. Thanks for sharing those stories with us as well.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Mike Detillier joining us tonight on Inside New Orleans Sports. Thanks so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast this program each and every Friday night right here on WLAE at 10 p.m. Also, Friday night, 9 o'clock, Pelican Sports Television as well. You can catch me on the radio, Sports 1280, 101.1 FM HD2, and the iHeart Radio app. That's noon to 2 weekdays. You can listen live, download the podcast at ericasher.com. All the previous episodes of this program can be seen at ericasher.com as well. Special thanks to Mike Detillier. Always great to have him on the program. Also to our fantastic underwriters. Thank those underwriters for their support, as well as the WLE production staff. Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Naila Jones, Alex Chacon, and my director, William Hill. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll be right back with you next Thursday night for another edition of Inside New Orleans Sports.